Welcome to Tiger Talks Wrestling. This is your host, Tony, and I am joined today by NLBW superstar Evan Blake.
How's it going?
Going pretty well, thank you. How are you tonight?
I'm pretty well myself.
Good to hear. Let's dive right into your origins of backyard wrestling. How did you get started in backyard wrestling?
My start, I pretty much got started in NLBW. Before that, it was all collegiate wrestling, street fighting, that kind of deal. And I felt that when I got the offer from NLBW to do backyard wrestling, which is something I had never really thought about doing before, I felt that it might be a good place for somebody with my skill set.
Fair enough. Would you say you had any influences in pro wrestling or backyard wrestling? You said you didn't really watch backyard wrestling, but pro wrestling wise, into determining to start in backyard wrestling?
Pro wrestling, I mean, there are an infinite number of influences that I could name, but mainly I could boil it down to 3 or 4,
Okay.
and that would be The Undertaker, Edge, Mick Foley, RVD, Shane McMahon. I know that last one might be a little controversial. Not everybody likes his style, but I do.
Right. Yeah, no, I can definitely see putting Shane McMahon in there. He is quite the scrapper, I'll put it that way. Shane doesn't get the credit that he deserves, in my opinion, for as good
Absolutely.
So.
You can always, I personally always respect somebody who has that kind of fighting style.
Right. I mean, he's the boss's son. He doesn't have to do the things he does, and yet he still, I think, doesn't get quite the credit that he deserves for it just because he is the boss's son. So.
Exactly. Dude's got a lot of heart.
That he does. Well, when NLBW started about a year ago, pretty much the first event, we saw you facing a certain Jay Genocide in a No DQ match. Quite a brutal match that one was. What was your opinions on the match after seeing it?
I mean, I can't say I was a huge fan of the outcome. I would have liked to come out on top with that, but hey, Jay Genocide's the kind of dude who he's an extremely tough opponent, and he knows how to get inside your head. I mean, I'm not sure if he's quite inside his own head. I question that sometimes, but he certainly knows how to get into somebody else's. And I think that in the end, it was his psychological game that won him that match.
Fair enough. That was one of not very many matches that we actually see Jay Genocide compete in during NLBW. And correct me if I was wrong, but at the end of that match was when we first seen you get attacked by this mysterious man known as Ghost. Or was that on the next show?
Yeah, no, that was right after that match. And yeah, the fans, the management, they've taken to calling him Ghost. I don't really know where that came from, and frankly, I don't care. At this point, what I'm concerned with, besides winning the NLBW championship, is being able to get my hands on him.
Right.
Because I'm just 100% pissed off at how things have been going with that situation, and the fact that I can barely even have a match without having to look over my shoulder.
Yeah, you got a point there. We'll get into that NLBW championship here in a little bit, but jumping the gun a little. After we saw you in Jay Genocide, the next time we'd see you in NLBW, you faced Hunter Knight with Jay Genocide as the actual guest referee for that match.
Yeah, after what happened with Patar Motionless, Patar Fire Breather, whichever you'd like to call him, accidentally getting on the wrong end of a Blake kick in my match with Jay Genocide, he kind of said that he didn't want to referee any more of my matches. He eventually came back around to it, but that didn't go well for him either.
Right.
And during that time where there was that void, Jay Genocide decided that it would be a good opportunity for him to step into a refereeing role, which he had no business being in. But that's subjective, I guess.
Yeah, he for the most part in that match seemed to call things pretty clean. Um, for the most part, we'll leave it at that one.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, another pretty good match you had there with Hunter Knight, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Then after that, we would see the quickest match that you had in NLBW when you faced the 1 Minute Man.
Yes, the 48-second encounter with the 1 Minute Man.
Yes.
1 Minute Man is he's an interesting dude, pretty charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that for the sake of his own safety, he should consider not stepping into the ring in the capacity that he does. I think that he's better suited to use that charisma and that personality to do things like commentary, being an internet personality. I know that he's got quite the huge Twitter following now. He's over 12,000 at this point, I think. By the way, check him out on Pro Wrestling Tees. But yeah, that was more of an open and shove victory for me. And then afterwards, of course, he and I had to team up to take on Ghost. Little after-match attack there, which, if I remember correctly, yeah, we came out on the winning end of that in a way. Not that it was a match.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the only time, or the first time at least, that you got the better half of the guy they call Ghost. Which led into an actual, well, if you want to call it this, a match between you and Ghost that was no disqualifications.
I would say that was less of a match and more of a shakedown. Yeah. I more or less got 3-on-1 assaulted, or 2.5-on-1, depending on how you look at Jay Genocide in that match. Yeah, I ended up going through a table, ended up pulling a little Shane McMahon myself. I'm not really sure. I know where Ghost stands on this. Obviously, he has a problem with me. I don't really know who he is or what he wants. He likes to hurt me. That's all I know at this point.
Right.
And he had some kind of minion in a red mask. What I'm confused on with this is, where does Jay Genocide stand?
Right.
Because he had an opportunity there to stop me with that kendo stick, and he made the decision not to. There was something there in him that made him not want to do that. And my only speculation that I can provide on that is that Jay Genocide, he just enjoys the chaos of it all. He just likes seeing people get hurt. He likes seeing just general chaos.
Yeah, I would say from the little that I've seen of him, I wouldn't be surprised if that would be the case. He seems to be that kind of a person that would just enjoy the chaos, in my opinion. So then from there, we wouldn't see much from NLBW after that showing. But once we did see you again, you had a match up at Unleash NLBW against Cameron Jackson. In another very good match. Cam did take you to the woodshed at times during that match, but I'll give you props on it. You did come out with a victory over Cameron Jackson in that one.
Well, he did take me to the woodshed in a sense. I mean, I was able to scrape out a victory there, but you got to think Cameron, he is, in a sense, the backyard wrestler.
Agreed.
Cameron is actually he's the one who reached out to us to bring us into the East Coast BYW community with VTW, BEW, or I believe they're called NUW now. But that was all Cameron. And then we decided that as the ambassadors of our respective brands, it was only appropriate to have this match. And
Okay.
fortunately, I was able to defend my home turf. I was able to come out on top um, against the outsider in a way.
Right. And then, actually, at the end of Unleash NLBW, we would see an announcement from you and the 1 Minute Man that the next time we see NLBW will actually be Destroy NLBW, the final show on NLBW channel.
Yes, destroy NLBW, and uh, sad to say, but that's gonna be the end of it. That's gonna be our final show.
Right. Now, on that show, we did hear that there will be a 4-man tournament to determine the first and only NLBW champion.
Yeah, that's gonna be to determine the NLBW champion, and I think that the company's been around for a year, and it's about time that we have a champion. Um, I know that one side of that bracket is going to see Jay Genocide face Nick Partisan, and I'm on the other side. They haven't really told me who I'm against. I keep kind of hounding management about it. They either don't get back to me or they give me vague answers. So I, you know, and I'm also a little sad not to see Brandon the Bullet being part of that. He was,
Right.
he was and is one of the integral and founding members of NLBW. So I think that he deserves a spot in the tournament, but hey, that's not how the cards fell.
Right. It's not necessarily you who's in charge of booking, obviously, either. So, in a way,
Yeah.
unfortunately, booking decided that wasn't his spot, apparently.
Hmm.
All right. So that's gonna be a sad show to watch, but yeah, a good show to watch to see how the tournament turns out and see who wins the championship. In my opinion,
Absolutely.
I'm sure everybody that'll be involved will give their 110% pretty much in there. So,
Oh, I'll be there giving my 110, 120, bringing the fight. You know how it goes.
oh yeah, we'll get into that because we've seen it a few times outside of NLBW as well. So, speaking of which, let's move into the first time that we've seen you outside of NLBW. Um, was actually in BEW's King of the Yard tournament. We had seen videos leading up to Best in the Yard where you and Jamal Payne had a little run in there. But then when the King of the Yard was released, we also seen you participate in the second round of the tournament against Shadowgrim.
Yes. Shadow Grim is one of the hardest hitting individuals, if not the hardest hitting individual that I've ever come up against.
Yeah.
Uh, and that dude, he was able to just keep up right there with me as far as the striking, as far as just knowing how to hit a dude hard. And that's definitely something I can appreciate. And he was even able to get the best of me in that match.
That he did.
There was a point there where I thought I was going to win, but honestly, I was so battered I couldn't even get him up my shoulders.
All right. And I would say he did have a little bit of a disadvantage going into that match. Shadowgrim did because his opponent originally was supposed to be Rick Rios in the second round of the King of the Yard tournament.
Mm-hmm.
He did not know that it was going to end up being you instead.
And I think that speaks even further to the caliber of wrestler that he is, that he's
Right.
that resourceful and that ready for anything.
Right. And I would say probably one of your better matches, in my opinion, that you've had was in that match against Shadowgrim. Um, you two did very well in that one. Gave it your all. What
Absolutely.
What was your opinion of the King of the Yard tournament overall since you did attend the show?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, I would have liked to see myself wearing that crown at the end, but I can't let something that petty bring down my overall opinion of the show.
Right.
I mean, everybody was there. Everybody brought their A game. They brought their 110%, and it showed in every single match.
I'd agree. You can't really pick one specific match, in my opinion, that outdid the rest. I know some people will mention a couple favorites that they have. Um, One I hear quite often is Yankees match that he had in the third round against Mr. Judgment, anyways. Where
Well, Yankee's the kind of dude who's no matter who you put him against, he's always going to perform. So that comes as no surprise to me.
right, it's just with that match, those two big men did things that you wouldn't expect to see out of guys their size for the most part. Um, they tore into each other like no other, pretty much, and just seeing Yankee with that suicide dive from the inside to the outside on Judgment was amazing, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I've even seen Yankee do things like a standing moonsault. Like the dude can move.
For a big man, he can move very well. Yes.
Mm.
Um, I was pretty happy with how the tournament turned out. I got to see what I wanted to see in the finals, in the semifinals, so I can't complain none there. I was also very happy that Cameron Jackson won because, in my opinion, he deserved it more so than, not to take away from anybody else, but just in my opinion, he deserved it more than anybody else did. With all the traveling that Cam has done and all the hard work he's put into backyard wrestling, trying to get not just himself and UWE on the map, but every other company that he's been a part of, I just couldn't see anybody else winning it.
I think there could be. I don't think there's a more appropriate first king of the yard than Cameron Jackson.
Yep. If anybody would have been second person, I would say that deserved it would have been who he faced in the finals, AK-47, only because he came from KBW, which is the most watched backyard wrestling promotion in the East Coast. So, well, not quite East, but still.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say that's East, but hey, you know, it's
Still
same
part
side
of
of
the
the
community. Yep. Man, overall, I was very happy with how the tournament turned out. Every match was awesome in every round, so it was very good. So then, when we go from there, we seen the night before Best in the Yard 3 a little video of you getting a visit from Yankee the Difference Maker himself in your hotel room. He gave you an offer pretty much that you could not refuse that night. And asked, well, I don't know if ask is the correct word or not here, but asked you to join the Murder Club anyways.
That did happen, and I did accept that offer. And a lot of my fans and my peers even think that by accepting that offer, I sold out. But the truth of the matter is that what I did was I made a career decision.
Agreed.
And a necessary one at that.
Yep.
Because as I mentioned earlier, with all this ghost business, this masked man business going on, I can't go anywhere without looking over my shoulder. And what Yankee and the Murder Club offered me was peace of mind, was the ability to give my 100% focus to Jamal Payne. Yep. And I think in the end, that was one of the biggest contributing factors to my victory that day.
I would agree. And going into that match, or to talk about that match, it was a 15-minute Iron Man match that went into overtime for you to actually pick up the victory. You both had 2 falls at the end of that 15-minute time limit. Which was...
go ahead. I think that... yeah, I was literally saved by the bell, to say, in that match. Yeah. If the timer had one more second on it, Jamal Payne would have walked away with the victory there. I think that in a sense that was pure luck on my part. Mm-hmm. And then in the end, it took a hell of a lot more to put him away than it did to put me away. I had to throw him off a ladder.
That you did. And you two, again, as I've said about the other matches, had a very, very good match. I would love to see the two of you go at it again, and I would imagine you seen my first interview with Jamal Payne.
I have seen that interview.
What's your reaction to that? What he had to say about the match?
I mean, my reaction, mm, I'm not going to give you a reaction. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look right into my camera and I'm going to speak directly to Jamal Payne. Anytime you want to go again, anytime you're feeling brave and feeling strong, I'm here and I'm ready. Anytime and any place that you want to go, I'm good to go. And that's my reaction.
Okay, fair enough. I know from when I was talking to Jamal Payne, it seems like he wanted a rematch at some point with you, so I'm sure he'd be more than happy to oblige with you on that at one time or another.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be in VTW or wherever that may be. We'll hopefully see it again in the near future.
Wherever he wants to go, he can come to. I don't know where I'm going to end up now, but he can come to Rhode Island and face me. I can go down there, which is pretty much the only viable option at this point. But wherever he wants to do it, I'm down to do it.
Yeah, I would say if it does happen again, there has to be another stipulation of some sort in the match as well. A different one, obviously, but just the way that you two tore into each other during that 15-minute Iron Man match tells me that just a plain old one fall match wouldn't settle anything between the two of you.
No, and that's because we're the two newest hot acts on the scene, and we showed up just about around the same time. So we have a very similar thing to prove, and that thing is to be proven to each other. It's really coming down to showing the more experienced guys, showing the guys like Cam, Drew, Big Time Mike, that either one of us is here to stay, is here to make an impact and make a statement. And I did that at Best in the Yard, but like I said, I'm open to a rematch if he wants to try again.
Right. So this was your very first appearance at Best in the Yard. First appearance, I believe, pretty much in a BTW arena, if I'm not wrong.
That's true.
What would you say was your overall experience there in BTW for Best in the Yard?
It was fantastic. I mean, I don't think there's been a bigger event in backyard wrestling history. I think that's the most stacked card, with the richest amount of talent, and I know that sounds like I'm saying a lot about myself, but I'm talking about guys like Drew, Big Time Mike, Novin was there, Cage was there, Cam was there. Like that's a once in a lifetime event.
Right. And I would say every year Best in the Yard has seemed to get bigger and better. And I'm sure Best in the Yard 4 next year will be no different.
Oh, I'm sure.
Are we going to see Evan Blake at Best in the Yard 4, do you think?
I would hope so.
Is there anyone that you've got your eye on that you would like to possibly face at Best in the Yard next year?
Yes.
Care to divulge?
Not at this time, no. I'm gonna see who I can get in contact with. I'm gonna see how feasible it is, but I have a challenge that I'm gonna issue when the time gets closer.
Fair enough. So I want to get your opinion on a couple other matches from Best in the Yard, though, real quick. First of all, I'm going to start with the main event match between Yankee and Zach Daniels. What did you think of that match overall?
I was right there ringside for that match. I was doing Murder Club security detail for Yankee, and as much as I would have liked to see Yankee come out on top, uh, I think that the match went really, really well.
Would agree. So I've got to ask, because I've been asking just about every guest. I've heard people say that that match should not have been the main event. What is your opinion on that? Should it Was it the right match to have as the main event at Best in the Yard, or do you think there was another match that should have been in place of it?
If there was another match, it would have been Cam versus Cage.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that Yankee versus Zach Daniels had the best build out of all the matches. And I think that the match with the best build is the one that deserves the main event.
I'd agree with that.
So, uh, to conclude that, to shorten that up, yes, it deserved the main event spot.
I'd agree. It was about a year's worth of build-up between those two, and not to take anything away from Yankee, but just the performances that Zach Daniels had at the first two Best in the Yards against Daisy and then against Chase Bridges, he definitely deserved that main event spot in my opinion. And
Absolutely.
the year he's had in VTW, where he spent almost a full calendar year as their YouTube champion. I mean, who better than him to main event Best in the Yard, in my opinion, for that reason alone.
That is absolutely the case.
But I know a lot of people were complaining and saying that Cage and Cam should have went on last, but to me, I I just can't give it to him, because to me Cage is just a part timer in backyard wrestling right now, because he's got his indie career, so you barely ever see him. I just wouldn't. I don't think it would have been a credible main event, honestly. Yes, they are the two biggest names in backyard wrestling, but still, especially with the way the finish went down, which was I wasn't a fan of at first, but I understand it more so after I thought about it more and more. Why they went with the double count out for that match.
Well, I mean, I would say they went with it because that's how things happen. But
Right.
yeah, I think that had a good place on the card, and I think that it served the place that it had.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Well, do I think it should have been the opener? No, not at all. I think that it was what, third or fourth to last.
Yeah,
Yeah,
third, I think.
that was an appropriate place for it to be. You had enough time with the show beforehand to kind of give some build up to it,
Mm-hmm.
but you also had a little bit of room to breathe afterwards before the main event.
I'd agree. I'm gonna get into the other two matches that were pretty much the two biggest builds real quick. What'd you think of the whole Novin rather, not Navan, Novin and Drew Hood match?
Yeah, Nirvana Novin. It's important to make the distinction between those two,
It is.
given that they are two separate entities at least.
Right.
Whether or not they share the same body, that's questionable, but they are two separate entities.
Yes.
Nirvana Drew Hood, they fucking killed it, man. That was awesome.
I agree. Novin and Drew did. When you think of it, that match technically wasn't supposed to happen at Best in the Yard, and it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of thrown together last minute. Those two built it up very well going into the match, and they performed very well in the match, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But you got to give props to both guys. It doesn't matter who won the match. It took everything from both of them to put the other one down. It took two El Kabongs, the second one being a Last Rites Tombstone, onto the guitar for Novin to pick up the win over Drew Hood. So
Mm-hmm. It did, and that just goes to show the kind of heart that Drew Hood has. Is that it took two guitars to the head to take him down, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff.
right, yeah, it didn't hurt any that Astor kind of tripped him up as he was on the top rope to lead into that Last Rites Tombstone. But
Mm-hmm.
it was still, like I said, a very good match between those two. That they gave it their all, and there's no shame in defeat, from, in my opinion, for Drew Hood in that match. I mean, you look at it, just after Best in the Yard, Drew would go on to win the VTW World Title. So,
Yeah, that's that's not a bad exchange right there.
right?
You
I'd take
know,
it.
lose to Novin, become the champion in your Fed. I'd take it.
Yeah, I would too. Um, the other match, if you want to touch on any others besides it, but the other match I definitely want to go over is pretty much my favorite match of it, but that's also because their first match was the main match that got me more so involved in backyard wrestling. That being the Rick Rios Big Time Mike 3 Stages of Hell match.
Of course, and 3 stages of hell it was. I mean, they put each other through hell.
They did.
Oh damn.
I mean, you seen Big Time Mike get busted open for the first fall. You saw Ricky tap out for the second one, and then the finish of that match. Just wow. Could you paint a better
Yeah,
picture, really? You know. Um,
yeah. By the end of that match, there was not a dry eye in the room.
I can believe it for
That
sure.
was those are two dudes who know how to do it, who know how to tell a story and know how to go to war.
Oh yeah, I would agree. Just seeing at the end of it where Rick positioned Mike right in front of Cam and Drew as they were watching as Mike's handcuffed with his hands behind his back and that fatal chair shot that kept Mike
Hmm.
down for the 10 count, and he's sitting laying there saying how sorry he is to Mike and Cam as the referees getting up to the 10 count was just it was heart wrenching, but it was still great to see. Um, if Big Time Mike was going out, I honestly couldn't see anybody else other than Rick Rios to be the one to do it. So it was a finish that was a little, I don't want to say predictable, but I could feel it personally coming. So, but they put on an amazing match and told a great story leading into the finish of it, in my opinion.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And of course, the FTC got their final curtain call pretty much after the match as well. So, as a threesome anyway, as a 3-man team, which was nice to see as well as Rick just walked off with TJ to give him that moment. Um, but yeah, I would say overall, Best of the Yard was the greatest of the three events in my opinion. Not just because it was in the ring, whereas the other two were not, but that didn't hurt none
It
either.
was the greatest backyard wrestling event of all time,
I would
hands
completely
down.
agree with it. Yeah, there was a couple matches I wasn't the biggest fan of, but everybody's gonna have that, I would imagine. So
Hmm. Well, I mean, on a card like that, it's such a huge card with so many polarizing matches.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna find a couple that aren't quite to the scale that the rest were.
Right, but yeah, just when you start with that pre-show that they put on and the battle royal, not just the battle royal, but the battle royal was a pretty good put together match in my opinion. Most of the guys got good spots in it. Little Debbie stole the show in my opinion in that battle royal,
Hmm.
and not only that, but that contract signing between Yankee and Zach in the pre-show.
Oh man, I could not believe that.
Right? I know I couldn't believe it either. In a way, I wasn't surprised that she was willing to take part in it, but it was very shocking to watch how Kristen landed, Zach's wife, landed with her neck snapping pretty much on that table and not going through the table. That looked pretty
I
bad.
mean, as far as being willing to participate in that, she's
Willing
the
to
kind of
die.
girl who stands by her man. She wanted to be ringside for that, and unfortunately, that cost her in the end. She ended up
It
taking the
did.
power bomb onto the table, and yeah, landing right on her neck. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, we all thought she was dead, but fortunately, she wasn't.
Oh, yeah. Very fortunate, I would say.
Hmm.
Right. So, what does the future do you think look like for you after NLBW's Destroy NLBW show?
The future is uncertain to say the least.
Right.
I mean, uh, the NLBW management has been in different talks with different places to try to find homes for all the wrestlers, as far as having a place to perform. And while nothing is set in stone, I think that in the end, we're all going to end up with the grounds to prove ourselves. So uh, I think things will work out.
All right. Do you see yourself crossing over to be parts of other crossovers, like say being at King of the Yard next year if there's another King of the Yard tournament?
Oh yeah, you'll for sure see me at King of the Yard, whether or not I'm actually on the card or not. I'm gonna be there.
Fair enough. And I have heard
Um,
rumors that it will be happening, but we'll see. Hasn't been confirmed
I
yet.
think it should happen given the level of success that the last one had.
Right. The only thing I'll say about King of the Yard that wasn't the greatest was how long it took to upload every episode. But still, the content on it was awesome. So yeah, I would definitely be great to see
Yeah,
another go around.
yeah, I would have liked to have seen King of the Yard go up before uh, Best in the Yard, but that's sometimes out of the control of those in charge.
Right. Yeah, I kind of understand. I've talked to a couple of the guys from BEW, and I kind of understand the issues that they're having, but
Hmm.
still, they
There, there's a lot that goes into a production like that, and I don't think
right.
a lot of people quite understand how much it takes.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty much what I got from the Dark Side. If you've seen the interview with I had with him just a couple days ago, um,
Hmm.
pretty much what he was saying. He could have used a little more help editing wise than what he got, and then it would have probably been up sooner. But it's neither here nor there. At least it all got put up in the end. So
It did.
it's just like other companies that have taken forever to upload stuff, but we won't get into that. Um,
I know NLBW has been guilty of that.
yeah, not the company I was thinking of, but yeah, a little bit. You guys have been, but yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So I want you for this next part to name. Well, let's actually finish up with that part first, though. You say you're going to be at King of the Yard next year. If you got the chance to, who would you say you would like to face in the first round if you could pick an opponent?
Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, at that point, it's like, do you choose somebody new, or do you choose somebody that you still have some beef with and you wanna go another round with? Uh, I'd like to see my first round opponent be Jamal Payne at this point.
Ah, that would be interesting. The only reason I wouldn't necessarily pick you and Jamal is, like I said earlier, I feel that you guys in a one-on-one match wouldn't settle things. But hey, you could always have that other match beforehand too. That would just about settle things between you. So
All right, I'll change my answer then. Johnny Reed.
Johnny Reed, why Johnny Reed?
I like his style.
All right, and the current rising star champion there in BEW. Some of the best matches, in my opinion, on BEW programming over the last several months, year probably, in my opinion. They haven't uploaded a whole lot besides King of the Yard lately, but still, if you go back to one of his most recent matches he had against Alan Styles, who his brother, those two put on some awesome matches there. So yeah,
Hmm.
and Johnny did pretty good in his King of the Yard match rather as well. So
He did. He did. Extremely talented individual, for sure.
now there was two guys in the King of the Yard tournament who I was a little surprised by. I actually haven't seen much of them. Those two guys actually came from NGW. Ellis Taylor and Charlie Tiger. Did you get a chance to see their matches that they had while you were there?
I'm not positive if I did. I only showed up on day 2 because I knew that they needed somebody as a replacement for that match with Shadow Grim. So I didn't really get to see much of day 1.
Gotcha. Yeah, they both.
But I have seen Charlie Tiger's match with Cameron. And I gotta say that was fucking stellar. That was great.
Well, speaking of great matches that he was a part of, Charlie Tiger, him and Dustin Reagan had a very good second round match, actually.
I'm sure that was brutal.
That it was. If you watch back the video, Charlie Tiger actually showed up, I believe, with a blade or something in his trunks that the referee caught. It was a little bit of a funny moment at the beginning before the match started, so it was something that made Dustin a little weary, I think.
Well, yeah, when you show up with a blade in your tights or a blade in your wraps or anything, there's only one thing you're going to use that for, and that's to use it on your opponent.
Right.
You know, there's no other way to do that, and there's no other reason for it at all. So, yeah, that's pretty nefarious of him to do.
Yeah, I would agree. I was very surprised that they both, Charlie Tiger and Ellis Taylor, won their first round matches, to be honest. They won by submission, which not many people did in the King of the Yard tournament. Let me double check here. Yeah, I'm not sure where that Cameron Jackson and match you were talking about happened. It wasn't part of the King of the Yard, but still.
No, it wasn't. I saw it a while back though.
Oh, that was probably an NGW.
Yeah. Well, in the lead up to my match with Cameron, I watched a lot of his stuff. You know, you always got to study your opponent.
Study him. Yep. Yeah. Well, Ellis Taylor beat Paul Peterson, which wasn't surprising, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlie Tiger got the submission win over Revan in that first round match. Those two put on a pretty good show. Honestly, I've watched Revan in UWE, and I would say the match he had with Charlie Tiger was probably one of his best matches, in my opinion. Even in defeat, he still looked good. So, and then the Ellis Taylor Zach Daniels match in the second round was also a very good match. Besides Dustin and Charlie Tiger. But yeah, I wouldn't mind. Honestly, I think he would match up pretty well against either one of those two guys, for that matter, in the first round next year. If he had the chances. Besides Johnny.
Hey, maybe it'll happen. We'll have to see in the future.
Right. Now, move on from that. Anything else you want to say about King of the Yard or Best in the Yard before I move towards the last couple questions here?
No, I think I've said what I need to say about those.
Alright. So let's move into, I want you to name me 3 dream matches that you have against backyard wrestlers that you haven't faced yet.
All right. I'm gonna go with Drew Hood, Novin, and Samael, who used to be Gas Chamber.
Okay. Why those 3?
Those are 3 of the best and most polarizing, in a way, individuals in the world of backyard wrestling. Drew Hood, he's the current VTW champion. So I mean, you know, how could I not want to face him? He's an extremely talented individual.
Right.
Novin, he's I've always had kind of a fascination with the supernatural. So I think that he would be a good test of myself.
Fair enough.
And Samael is the king of ultra violence. And as I said before about Novin, I'm all about testing myself. I'm all about taking myself to the next level, no pun intended. And I've always said I want to have at least one ultra violence deathmatch type match, and I can think of nobody more appropriate to test myself against than Samael.
That would be a pretty interesting match. You've had some no DQ matches. You've had that Iron Man match that was no disqualifications in it, but still, that would be, I would say, a little bit out of your element. So it would be awesome to see what would happen between the two of you, because you can get hardcore too. We've seen so.
Hmm. I've never quite been to that level though, so it's
Right.
no, it's a test of myself. I'm taking myself to new places. I try to every day.
Which is a great thing to do, and probably some other people should learn to do it as well, but don't. But I won't go there at the moment. So I want to put you in a little scenario here. You find yourself in an elimination chamber match. I want you to name 5 guys from backyard wrestling that you would be in there with.
All right, I'm gonna go with 1, Cage. 2, Cameron Jackson. 3, Jamal Payne. 4, Jay Genocide. And 5, Ghost.
Okay? Out of those 5 guys, who's the last man that you're in there with that you defeat to win the match?
Ghost.
I won't ask why, because that's pretty self-explanatory in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So you won that match, gives you the opportunity to go on and compete in the main event of Best in the Yard. You choose who you'd be facing and for what title. They don't have to be a current champion.
I'm gonna go with the current champion. I'm gonna face Drew Hood for the VTW title.
Fair enough. Any specific reason why it would have to be Drew and nobody else?
He's the current champion, and he was one of my 3, so you can't go wrong there.
Alright, I would agree with that. So we've kind of gone over your future being a little uncertain here. We will be seeing, I would imagine, quite a bit of you, though, for the rest of 2017, yes?
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna be traveling as much as I can, uh, getting myself on the card in as many places as I can, and uh, spreading myself out through different feds as much as I can.
I know, personally, I would love to see you get a chance to compete against some other guys in VTW besides other companies, but VTW because it's the biggest company, honestly, in backyard wrestling right now.
That it is.
I could see you easily matching up well with several of their talent. They've got new guys coming in even still right now. Um, but to see you and Dustin Reagan for one would be quite an interesting match in my opinion.
Absolutely. That's another dream match of mine.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention you and the current YouTube champion D-Lock.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing that you two are both Murder Club members
Mm-hmm.
might mean that it wouldn't happen anytime soon, but still, I think the two of you would be a show stealer on any show.
I don't think that us being Murder Club necessarily means that we can't face each other. I don't think that's outside of the parameters of the Murder Club.
Right.
So that's another dude. Anytime he wants to go, I'll come down there and we can go around.
All right. Is there anyone specific in VTW that honestly you wouldn't want to face?
No one in particular. No, I'd be open to face anybody.
All right. I would say pretty much anybody on that roster would be a great fit for you. You got several guys that would be mesh quite well, same style just about as you, and they've also got several guys that would be complete opposites style wise than you. Um,
Hmm.
like for one, if you stepped in the ring with Aaron Jones, that would be quite the contrast in styles and size for that matter as well. But it'd be an interesting match to see you face Aaron Jones, in my opinion, at some point
I
as well.
think so. Also, I think that that would definitely be something interesting, something to take me out of my element. Element. Yeah,
Right.
take me out of my element a little bit.
Yeah. Is there anybody else that outside of BTW that you might have an eye on that we haven't mentioned in the show tonight yet? No matter where they may be from, whether that be on UWE or what used to be UWE, whatever you want to call it, BEW, Proving Grounds, anywhere on the East Coast, even AK-47 for that matter.
Hmm. AK-47. I mean, I'd always be open to that.
Right.
I mean, some guys that I know are around, but haven't really had a whole lot of interaction with the East Coast guys are the Indiana Championship Wrestling crew. I don't know how familiar you are with them, but
I can't say I am.
okay, well check them out. KCW Videos is their YouTube channel. Um, I mean, I'd love to go a couple rounds with any of those guys
Gotcha.
if we're talking about people who are outside of the East Coast feds.
Right.
That's pretty much where it's at. Uh, Besides the East Coast,
All right. Fair enough. So, in closing, where would you say you see yourself in the future past 2017? How long do you think you'll be in backyard wrestling?
I'm gonna be in backyard wrestling as long as I can be, unless I hit some kind of big break. Then the backyard is gonna be my home. As much indie stuff as I do, and as much other stuff that I'll do. The backyard is always gonna be where Evan Blake got his start.
Right.
That's always where my heart's gonna belong.
All right. Do you see yourself going pro at some point, though?
I mean, I've already gone pro. I'm not sure how much of my Showcase Pro stuff is actually on the internet, but uh, I've wrestled there a little bit. Um, but I'd of course like to make it bigger.
Right.
You know, maybe end up in Ring of Honor, NXT someday. But I think that that's really everybody's goal.
For the most part, it honestly it should be, in my opinion, in
Mm-hmm.
some way, shape, or form, because the backyard's always there, yes, but you can't just live off of the backyard. Um, Unfortunately, it's great to watch. It's great to be in, I'm sure, but still, you got to have bigger aspirations than just competing in backyard wrestling.
Absolutely. Um, I think that backyard wrestling is more and more becoming the ground level for the future stars in the business.
Right?
I think a lot of the guys that are yarding right now, they're going to end up going on to become big indie successes and maybe even big pro successes.
Oh yeah, I can see that with quite a few guys really.
Hmm.
If they put
I
the
mean, you're already seeing it happen with Cage.
right,
He started as a successful backyarder, and now he's known worldwide.
that he is, and not just Cage. There's another guy who doesn't get mentioned that often in the backyard, but the Bad Reed, or Myron Reed, as he's pretty much goes by now, got his start in backyard wrestling as well, and he's been on Ring of Honor, so mostly in dark matches, but still he's made it to Ring of Honor. So
He did. And then if you want to talk about two guys who made it really, really big, who are well-known backyard wrestlers, the Hardys.
yep.
I mean, they were arguably the original backyard wrestlers.
Well, if you want to talk original, I mean, you'd have to go back even further than that because Mick Foley is quite well known as he started in a backyard, jumping off the top of his shed pretty much onto a mattress. So
That's true.
but yes, I would give that to the Hardys as well. So unfortunately, the backyard wrestling isn't highlighted that much in pro wrestling. It's kind of frowned upon or looked down on, but
It is.
in my opinion, it's still a great start for pretty much anybody to get their feet wet in the profession.
I think that in the coming years, you're going to see that perception slowly change. I think that now, excuse me, I think that now with this influx of the mixing of guys who are tweeners between indie and backyard, and dudes like Yankee, dudes like Cameron, dudes like Cage, like myself. I think the backyard is going to build a better reputation than it's had in the past years.
I'd like to see that happen. There are some people out there that claim this is just a short era for backyard wrestling, as there has been other shorter eras of backyard wrestling before YouTube pretty much became popular. I honestly hope that's not the case. I hope that backyard wrestling will be around for a long, long time. And like I said, I hope that you're right, that it will be changed for the professional wrestling to change from frowning upon it to actually be accepting of it. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I think you said it right there. That was before YouTube was popular and before YouTube was such a mainstream way to share media. Now that YouTube is around, and now that backyard fans are able to post things on YouTube and actually garner a consistent following, I think we're here to stay.
Yeah, and I would say it's pretty much all on YouTube right now for backyard wrestling. But even if they wanted to, if a company wanted to, they could even switch over to Twitch. I mean, Wrestle Circus has their own show on Twitch. I don't know if you've heard of them out of Texas, but they've got their own channel on Twitch that does very well. So there's plenty of outlets out there for backyard wrestling right now. And if you ask me, with those outlets, it's going to be hard for professional wrestling to ignore backyard wrestling in the long run.
No, that's absolutely the case.
Yeah. But anyways, I got a little tangent on that, but is there any last words that you have for your fans or anybody, any future opponents or potential opponents before we close out the show?
Check out NLBW. It's coming to an end soon, but we have a whole back catalog of stuff.
Oh yes, it's worth the watch too.
Mm-hmm.
And where can people find you on social media if they're new to you?
On YouTube, Next Level Backyard Wrestling. That's where you're gonna find me, and on Twitter at Fight Evan Blake.
All right. You have anything to say to any of your naysayers?
I mean, that's tough. What do you say to the naysayers?
Right? It is
tough. Keep watching me, and someday I'm gonna prove you all wrong.
Fair enough.
You gotta go bold.
Right? Yeah, that's a great way to put it, in my opinion.
Yep, that's for the naysayers, and for the yaysayers, for the fans, I say thank you, and stay next level.
for Evan Blake, I'd like to thank you once again for being on the show. I very much appreciate you coming on.
And thank you.
And you're very welcome. This has been Tiger Talks Wrestling. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining.